to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Oh, welcome in.
Hey, you went for it. Good for you.
And not only honestly, I thought it was totally fine. Hold on, let me do it again.
Well, if you thought it was fine.
Yeah, then you weren't listening. But
Yeah, I was going to leave it.
I was proud of you because it was so bad at the beginning. But you pushed through.
Here's the problem. I will explain this. Before the show began, you were in the bathroom.
Yes.
And once upon a time, we started the show with you in the bathroom.
I remember that.
And so Al Borland has the genius idea. He goes, just do a welcome in while he's in the bathroom. We'll scare him again. And I do it.
Oh, and it worked. And it was fine.
Sounded fine. So I went in with less hesitation.
No fear.
No fear.
And
I should have had so much fear.
You should have had more fear.
You only have one per day. You wasted it.
Oh, you're right.
You wasted it on a bit.
Yeah, I wasted it on a bit. But here we are. And I know that's not going to get redone. So Tuesday, June 3rd, the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Andy Holloway, Mike Wright, Jason Moore back with you. It's exciting. It's going to be a fun day. We've got some Explain Yourself rankings debates on the show today because the UDK is live. All of our rankings are live. The Ultimate Draft Kit. And so there are 3 players today that we have kind of a big difference in our rankings. You know, one individually much different than the other 2. So we'll go through some Explain Yourself. We got a lot of NFL news to catch you up on. Good quick question and some mailbag if we have time. But, yes, the UDK, it is alive. UltimateDraftKit.com.
Toilet season got an upgrade.
Yes, that's one of our bigger marketing, phrases.
Look, when you're my age, I'll get on the App Store. I'm like, I got to find a game.
For the bathroom.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, none of these. This doesn't work for me anymore. I need
the
something
games?
to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
The mobile games. It's like,
you're not into that.
I can't.
No Candy Crush while you're crushing it on the toilet.
No, my own personal Candy Crush.
Candy Crush that toilet.
No, I don't know why. I can't get into any of them.
Does this disappoint you? Are you?
It does.
You're just not like a fun guy anymore?
Well, look.
You know
how
what?
dare you?
Hold on. I think I know what people do in your situation.
Okay.
Sudoku. I think that's what they move on. I think they move on to some Sudoku.
The old person game.
I can
Crossword
100%
puzzles.
get down on some Sudoku. That's a good game.
There you go.
It's a good game.
It's a good game.
We're there. We're there.
You're there.
Because jigsaw puzzles is rapidly approaching.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, no.
And bird watching.
Oh, well, no, that's already here because that's awesome.
You're already into bird watching. Okay, good. You'll be collecting plants soon, taking care of gardens. I don't know what else old people do, but we're
about to
we'll
find
figure it
out.
Quick question of the day from Brandon writing in on X. Have you ever made a draft pick and then immediately regretted it? Last year in a live Superflex draft, I took a second quarterback and immediately regretted it as I left A.J. Brown out there on the board.
Yep.
So, first of all, have you ever done that? Second of all, how do you avoid panic and tilt when you feel instant regret during the draft?
I think we've all.
I'm sure I have.
Yeah, I don't have a memory of, oh my gosh, I left this player and I took that player. I think what has happened before, and maybe this is more in mock drafts or in drafts that I'm not specifically prepared for this draft, is when you grab the same team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I remember doing that now with Alfred Morris back when he was having his run with Washington, and it was probably like Terry. And
just having players, because in fantasy they're so isolated on our cheat sheets and stuff. Sometimes it's individual breakdowns that you're not putting the pieces together on the teams in the moment because of tilt.
Yeah, no, it happens. And right after that, you're reminding me now, Jay. After I took 2 people from Washington, I went, oh, this can't be good.
Yeah, I mean, how you avoid that? It's really just preparation. Like, the more you're prepared beforehand, you're listening to this show. If you got the UDK. When you go into your draft prepared, it's very rare that you're going to make a pick and immediately regret it. I would say the times that it happens, and we've said this before, but you always have to have, when you're one pick away, you have to have 2 players.
Yeah.
You can't just have one. If you had 3 picks away, and now you're down to 2, and now you're down to 1, before you're on the clock, figure out who that second player is that you want. Because when you've only got one guy left you want, and that guy goes right before you, it's your brain goes toast. Your brain's just gone.
Don't let one bad pick become 4 bad picks.
Right.
Right? Like if you go into a draft with a plan, you might make a mistake. You might take a pick and then you see somebody else on the board or you realize like Mike was saying, you drafted 2 guys on the same team. Like, don't let that compound itself into missing on 4 or 5 picks in a row. Because you go on with the plan, you mess one up, go back to the plan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, draft the rest of the pieces of a good team, figure it out from there. You set the foundation of your team at the draft, but you're not, nobody's taking that drafted team and going all the way without tons of great moves throughout the way, free agency, waiver wire, trades, all of the above. That's why our show doesn't stop in like the end of August.
Yeah,
right?
you don't win your championship at the draft. You only set a foundation. It's a season-long game.
Dude, Alfred Morris appeared in 9 seasons.
See, we were busy talking, Jay, and this dude was deep diving Alfred Morris.
I had moved on, man.
You'd move back.
Sure.
See, Alfred Morris is most famous to me for driving the same beater car even when he got a paycheck.
Oh, dude, it was awesome. The beginning of his career, 3 straight 1,000 yards. It was rookie season.
Thank you, RG3.
1,613 touchdowns on the ground as an undrafted or
6th rounder.
I'm saying he was around 6th. I'm undrafted in fantasy.
Oh, right.
Like we weren't drafting Alfred Morris. It was right before that season happened. All of a sudden, whispers started to come out.
That's true.
And then he was
a 6th-round pick
in the NFL draft.
Yeah. I mean, that's
in 9 years. Oh man, good for you, Alfred Morris.
Pretty legendary season. Thank you for that, Mike.
You're welcome.
All right, let's talk some news.
News and notes from around the league.
Welcome to the news.
That was much better.
Yeah. I got some regrets. Ricky Pearsall, hamstring injury, likely won't return to practice until training camp, says Kyle Shanahan. Off-season injuries right now. Yeah, I mean, there was a corollary report just about Juwan Jennings being targeted all over the field.
Yeah,
and
he's all that's left.
Yeah, well, Jonnu Smith conveys he wants a new contract
that's what we need, Jay.
with Miami. He is due $4.8 million, and his agent and his bank account would like to cash in on a career year. Miami's been seeking a trade partner instead of agreeing to the request for a new contract.
Not a great sign.
Steelers have expressed interest. Mr. Arthur Smith has an addiction
to Jonnu Smith.
Yeah. So we'll see where he ends up. It's tough. We just did player profile videos for Jonnu Smith in the UDK, and right now we're moving forward projecting him on Miami because
he's on Miami.
Yeah. Somebody asked why we didn't have an Amari Cooper player profile. It's because he's on nobody's team.
Oh, man. Ain't nobody wanting Amari Cooper right now.
Yeah, Jonnu is going to be quite an important piece because I think that Jonnu Smith, as a Dolphin, is actually a really important fantasy tight end relative to the position. He's not, in that upper tier. But then if he leaves, I mean, he was the amount of targets and receptions he had, especially once Tua came back, that is probably really good news for the Tyreek truthers and the Jaylen Waddle truthers if Jonnu is not on the roster. So we're on Jonnu watch now.
Yeah, maybe some foreshadowing for a segment later today talking some Dolphins. But we also have some Kyle Pitts news. Many teams reaching out to the Falcons about the availability of Kyle Pitts.
Says Kyle Pitts' agent probably.
Nope, Jordan Schultz of
right.
Fox News. But Kyle Pitts is not practicing right now. He's not at OTAs. Dealing with an injury. Wink, wink.
Oh, my goodness.
The best thing for Kyle Pitts would be a change of scenery, which might not be the best. It might not be a good thing at all, but to me, that's the best. Because if somebody goes out and tries to acquire him, there's 2 things that are going to be true. 1, they have a plan for him. 2, they have a plan for his contract. Like you're going into your final year. If both of those things, he's still very young, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's him or RJ Harvey.
I think they're months apart.
Yeah, so you're talking about a reclamation of potential that another team that we would talk ourselves into believing.
I don't know, man.
I think we need to hold the line here.
Yeah,
on all that.
he just seems so disinterested on the field.
But you've sent me two or three trade offers for Kyle Pitts in our dynasty league because
but we're
there's
talking
part of
about,
you
like,
that's like trying to buy the lowest you could buy.
Absolutely. And
Because there's some small part of you that believes that
because he's 24 years old.
Yes.
It's like
that's it.
He's 24 years old. He had a 1,000-yard rookie season. He showed flashes, but then, when I went to make those trade offers from you, Andy, I started with a second-round pick. And then I looked at Kyle Pitts again.
Did you
I looked
send it?
deeper. No,
okay.
I had it. I was like, that's what I'm gonna offer a second. And it was more than just
You should see what
Pitts
I
in
would
there.
do
But I'm just saying, like,
if you send it.
yeah. And then I'm like,
You
whoa.
should run an experiment.
I forgot that he's played 4 full
I dare you.
seasons.
I feel like that's an auto accept from Andy.
Oh, for sure it would be. I'm not offering a second.
Let me tell you, maybe this will entice you, Jay.
It will not come.
Year 1, 1 touchdown. Year 2, 2 touchdowns. Year 3, 3 touchdowns.
Oh.
Year 4, 4 touchdowns.
Oh, my gosh. Year 5.
5 touchdowns.
Whoa.
So in about 6 years, we're going to be talking top-tier tight end. Yeah, so we don't know. I mean, Kyle Pitts right now, not practicing, not traded. And not under contract after this season. C.J. Stroud dealing with a minor shoulder muscle issue. No concerns from their offensive coordinator about him not throwing. And then Joe Mixon, lower body injury. Did not participate in Friday's OTAs. It was reported that he had a minor workout injury. Nothing serious is the quote.
I believe he was in a walking boot.
Mm-hmm.
Should
Should have been a running boot.
Yes. My minor injuries that I put on a walking boot.
Well, they said he'll be ready for training camp. We'll follow along.
All right.
It is one of the concerns of any of the aging
That
running
is
backs.
suspicious.
So we had a report for all of the madness going around Stephon Diggs. One of the radio pundits talked about the fact that cutting him is on the table. He just signed a 3-year, $69 million contract, and then he showed up at OTAs, and we're in a world.
Well, he was there, and then he was gone.
Yeah.
And then the video came out, the boat video, and now he's back.
Here's the confusion around Diggs. There were like people in the know in New England talking about wishful thinking is him being back on the field by week 4 of the NFL season. Now, prior to that report, this show, the three of us, identified Diggs as a value for the UDK. He would have been in our UDK values.
He was. We removed him before the release of the Ultimate Draft.
Wrote the blurb up and everything, looked at him based on where he's being drafted, Drake May's potential, the contract, as a value. Then this news report comes out, and it says, he might not be available to week 4. We're not going to recommend a player that you shouldn't draft.
Yeah, it must be really behind in his recovery. Or not even behind. It's just the timeline for him.
If he's not ahead of the timeline, then Jason, he is in fact behind.
That's fair.
And then the video comes out, and he's without a brace
Today.
and he's running around with Keyshawn Boutte, and he looks totally spry and fine. And it's June 2nd. We don't have football till September, and this guy looks very, very healthy.
I'm not a doctor. I was saying
Right.
this. I was saying this before the show that I don't understand. Like I still think that he might go on the PUP and miss the first 4 weeks, like the beat reporters are saying, because that's being reported. But I don't get how that's humanly possible. He's running full routes, no brace. He looks fine. I know that's a far cry from necessarily being in NFL shape. But it's like, but the season doesn't start tomorrow or next week or next month. You've got months from now before. Like, I watch that video and I don't know how he is not ready for week 1.
Unfortunately, one of the ways he's not ready for week 1 is if he wasn't on the team, or there's some consequence of these
It's boat-related
suspensions.
I think it's less about the boat there, Mike.
This is not the first boat-related conversation in the offseason. Remember Zeke in a boat? Stay away from
the
boats.
Giants. Look, you would
Very dangerous.
bad things happen on a boat.
You remember Tom Brady getting off the boat?
Oh yeah.
Oh man, that was a weekend in Bernie's. Yes, that dude was
After celebrating his
he
Super Bowl.
had celebrated.
He had really celebrated.
Got after it.
Boats are where it's at. Joe Flacco right now being reported by the Athletic, Zach Jackson, is the favorite to win the job.
What?
It's going all over the place.
Hold on.
So it's a full.
This is news to me.
Well, this is full circle. The offseason began, and I was completely convinced that Joe Flacco would be the starter.
As was I. I held off for so long on my projected stats.
Then they draft Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders.
And trade for Kenny Pickett.
And they traded for Kenny Pickett. And now the way it's being
They
discussed.
traded for Kenny Pickett first.
Sure.
Yeah, the way it's being discussed is there's two battles right now. There's the battle for the starter job, Flacco and Pickett.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a battle for the top rookie. Now, if Flacco doesn't win the starter's job, I don't know if he's in Cleveland. That's how I'm looking at this.
Right.
Is that I don't think
He'll probably ask for a release.
they're not going to keep 4 quarterbacks on this roster. So to me, it's like if Flacco, and I think both rookies are staying.
Yeah.
So it seems like one of those two, Pickett or Flacco, would be gone. It's still up in the air. Now, Flacco, if he won the job, I'm already on the side of like, I'm a little bit more pro Judy, a little bit more excited about Njoku. I assume Flacco being in that starter's role would
changes my entire
everything.
Outlook of the Cleveland Browns.
Is it because he's a professional quarterback?
It's
Yeah.
because he is, and it's because even though like the days, the couple year ago run that Joe Flacco had on the Browns, I think that's gone, but Joe Flacco could throw for 4,000 yards. Can Kenny Pickett throw for 4,000 yards? I doubt it. Can Kenny Pickett
Across a couple of seasons, yeah.
Can Kenny Pickett what's Kenny Pickett's high for touchdowns? Doesn't he? Doesn't he have one of the lowest touchdown rates
let's
ever?
guess.
Let's guess.
I'm going to
His
guess
high.
17.
I think
No,
you're
that
too
seems
high.
high.
I think you're too high.
15. 15 is all I'll go with.
You guys guess. I'm pulling it up.
I'm going to say 18. That does feel high.
You guys are so off.
Was it like
9?
9?
Andy, you need to take 10 off of your guess.
5?
7 touchdowns.
That's his career high.
As a
passing.
rookie in 12 starts, 7 touchdowns. He followed that up in 11 starts with 6.
Lowest touchdown rate of all time through 25 starts.
That's what I'm saying. This has been a problem for me when I'm trying to evaluate the Cleveland Browns.
This is why you can't pick Kenny Pickett.
You can't.
If you're the Browns, you can't pick him as one of these options.
Oh my gosh.
Unless you want
Did we say the
to
part
have
of
the first pick.
So the report that came out from The Athletic that was mentioning they think Joe Flacco is the favorite, it did say it's not going to be one of the rookies. At least
As a starter, for sure.
Well,
That's
that's
what
my
I mean.
point is there's two battles. There's the
Yeah.
best of the rookie
Okay.
backups,
Just making sure that was communicated.
and then there's the starting job. And we all know that all these guys are going to play because this is going to be a terrible year.
Yeah, we'll see all 3 that are on the roster.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
This is huge news. Probably should have led with this. The Lions
Oh my God.
All-Pro center Frank Ragnow announced his retirement.
He wasn't
He's only 29 years old, 4-time Pro Bowler, was the number 1 blocking center in the game last year.
I think he's a top 3 or now was a top 3 center in the NFL. He missed very few games since they drafted him in 2018. He's an enormous part of – you look at the strength of this offense. The Lions are a great offense, the literal number 1 scoring offense last year, and the strength – it's not Jared Goff. It's not Amon-Ra. It's not even Jahmyr Gibbs. It's their offensive line. The offensive line is what makes everything else work. It's what lets David Montgomery and Jamal Williams score 15 touchdowns a season. This is a brutal loss. Now, they did spend a second-round draft pick on a rookie guard who right now in camp has been playing the snaps at center. I mean, we saw last year, we saw the Eagles lose an all-world, Hall of Fame center, and they were fine. They had a plan in place. That being said, I feel like they knew that, Kelsey every year was like, are we going to have Kelsey back? They kind of had a plan in place. I'm not sure that the Lions had enough time to know exactly what.
I think they had an inkling at least because they took him in the second round.
Well, but he wasn't a center. He was a guard at Georgia.
Yeah,
He was
that's
a
fair.
3-year starter there, but they did bring him in because he's versatile and he could play center, and they brought him in at rookie camp as a center. So I think that's when the inkling began.
Mhm.
We thought this was contract-related, 29-year-old All-Pro, a team that's on the rise.
Did you guys read his little message?
I
did.
read. It seemed like it was health.
Yeah,
health-related.
100%. And it was just it felt kind of sad for him to
Yeah.
be at the age he's at, and he's like, I thought I had more football, he's like, but I don't. I'm hurting. My body is. You're like, oh man, ugh. Your body's
it's not
toast.
forgiving.
At that age?
Wait till you're 40, man.
Yeah.
I got bad news for you.
Jason
it gets
hasn't played
worse.
center in years.
No, I used to be a center.
So there you go. I mean, it's
Yeah.
significant. It will be a change. They do have still a foundational pieces around him.
For sure.
Routledge stepping in, but there's just a lot that a top tier center does.
Well, and
you
especially
mentioned Philly, they went out and won a Super Bowl when they lost.
Yeah, I don't.
Kelsey, but
I'm not going to overreact to this. I think the Lions are going to be a good offense, but I do look at the specific piece, the center being gone, and how that affects Jared Goff. Jared Goff is not one of those guys that likes to, make things on his own. He's an in-system awesome player when everything is working
good,
right.
Yeah.
And so like Jamison Williams, he's a guy I know, Andy, you're pretty bullish on.
Yep.
That's the one player that I think almost gets hurt the most. Probably David Montgomery, followed by Jamison Williams, because you want the plays to develop, that downfield passing they've talked about with Morton coming in, that they want to push the ball down the field more. Well, you got to protect Jared Goff. So it's just a little worry on the back. The hair stands up a little.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if it affects the running game more, and if that leads to Goff having to throw the ball more. And I don't know. Right now it's just fresh, brand new news, but a big loss, no doubt. We'll take a break. We'll jump into some rankings. Explain yourself.
Quite well, thank you. No. Clearly you are not. No rational person would do as you have done. Explain yourself.
I think I'm rational, Mike.
Sometimes.
I thought I was a rational person.
No, we all think that. We all think we're rational when we're putting in our projections. And then the captain of this show, Andrew Holloway, decided he's going to put Baker Mayfield at quarterback 6. We're talking about Baker Mayfield. I'm sorry.
Laser.
No. For this argument, I can't call him that.
Right.
That, when I call a guy his cool nickname, it does not help me.
Yeah, he's trying to set up the negative.
I'm trying to
get back in the kitchen. You're a baker.
So a player who had never surpassed 28 passing touchdowns jumps all the way to 41, jumps 500 passing yards, even though he played every game 2 years ago for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Andy's like, pocket passing Baker Mayfield. Well, I got him ranked real high, so you explain yourself.
This one's so fun to me. It's a good discussion. Like Baker, by the way, I didn't place him at 6, to be clear. The way we do rankings here at the Fantasy
I didn't
Footballers.
choose the stats. The stats chose me.
The stats are the stats. And in fact, when you look at kind of how the three of us project Baker, we're not too far off.
No.
I do have him at 6. He ended up at 6. I think the discussion that I want to have is one that I feel like one player is being omitted from. We have a repeated refrain on the show about the pocket passer, touchdown variability. But there's one quarterback, not Baker, there's one other quarterback that seems to get a pass on this. And it's true in drafts. And so to me, Baker is discount Burrow. And that's the situation. That's the discussion I want to have, because Burrow is a 4th round draft pick right now, which means that if you're sitting in the 4th round and you're saying, I've got to have Joe Burrow, right? I've got to have that guy instead of somebody like Baker in the 6th round. That means I'm not getting George Kittle in the 4th round, right? I'm not getting Joe Mixon in the 4th round. I'm not getting Rashee Rice. I'm not getting Alvin Kamara. This is who I'm going to pass on to get Joe Burrow, who, to me, I just don't understand really functionally how all the arguments that you would make against Baker Mayfield, most of them apply to Joe Burrow, except for the fact that Baker runs for more yards, which is it's a bit of an equalizer for the variability at touchdown in the touchdown numbers. Now, I didn't go out and project Baker for 41 touchdowns. I projected him for 30. But he ran for 378 yards last year. If you look at the last 2 years in the NFL, Baker Mayfield is number 1 in the league in passing touchdowns over the last 2 years. He's the number 1 most effective passing quarterback. And one of the things that really rubs me the wrong way is any argument around Baker Mayfield that is historically based on previous seasons with different organizations in the past and touchdown rates in the past. Those are misleading, in my opinion, and a huge mistake for fantasy players.
I disagree.
That's why I'm explaining myself. Yeah. I think that's just really fundamentally not valuable to our analysis of Baker Mayfield, because This was a guy almost run out of the league.
Mm-hmm.
That was part of, the Cleveland organization that was dysfunctional. He struggled there, had his one game in Los Angeles.
Thank goodness they got him out and Watson in, right?
In Cleveland?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, but those
Nailed
years,
it.
Those years are so incomparable on so many levels. I mean, he from the touchdown percentage to just his consistency, his completion percentage in Cleveland, he had years of 59%, 60%. He's better than Burrow. He was at 71%. Burrow's at 70% last year. Oh, what else? Oh, yeah, he's an A in consistency. So his last rolling 17, you can throw the injuries in for Burrow. His rolling 17, 64% of the time he's in our metric for consistency at the quarterback position. Burrow's at 52%. So you got to give Baker his due, his credit. And the fact that 40-plus touchdowns is now in the arsenal, is now in the range of outcomes for him, like, we've talked about Jamar Chase. That's probably Jamar Chase's peak season. Like, you just went out and you just set a triple crown for Jamar Chase is not every season.
Right.
And you took Baker Mayfield and you gave him another rookie weapon. He's got 2 elite pass-catching running backs. You've got 4 elite pass-catching wide receivers, and you've got an elite pass-catching tight end, and you have the same foundation to the offense. Like, from a repeatability standpoint, this is why I was on Team Baker last year. Because last year was a call for regression for Team Baker. And you want to know what the basis of that was? His historical touchdown percentage and everything he's ever done on these other teams. He wasn't the same player. He wasn't the same player at all. So I think the floor is 30 touchdowns on this roster. It's a great team. Jason's constantly talking about Bucky Irving breaking down and not being able to be like, you can't build the offense around Bucky Irving exclusively. It's a Baker offense. Mike Evans is an elite wide receiver still. Chris Godwin, you brought him up last week. He was the number 1 fantasy producer during his active weeks. He was the number 1 fantasy wide receiver. And then you've got McMillan, and you have Egbuka, and you have Otten, and you have these other guys. I just feel like the case. Oh, and by the way, you have slightly a bit of an offensive line. Like, he took fewer sacks than Joe Burrow did. They both fumble the same amount of times. He threw more picks. And I'm not saying he is Joe Burrow. I'm just saying the arguments that are being made against Baker are not made against Burrow. And I don't think that's fair because Burrow's a pocket passer that's going to run for 200 or fewer yards, and Baker's going to go for 300 to 400.
Yeah, I would disagree with that. And we'll start off. We all like Baker.
Yeah,
I think that he is a good pick. Like, he's okay if you want to take the discount. Baker, like Joe Burrow, was at 200 rushing yards, which he's done 2 times in his career. Baker ran 2 fewer times last year than he did 2 years ago, and put up over 200 more rushing yards. I think that was more of just a fluky thing for Baker. So I'm not necessarily in on the rushing, but I'm in on that he can throw in the 30s.
It's an ADP argument to me too, right?
Yeah.
Like these guys, 21.9 fantasy points per game for Burrow last year, 21.5 for Baker last year. And I get to draft players in the 4th round like Marvin Harrison and combine them with Baker. If that was I'm probably not taking those guys, either of them. I'm probably just going to wait a little bit longer, but I'd rather have 2 rounds of value because the guys I'm getting in the 4th round at other positions are better.
Yeah, I understand everything you're saying. When I said I disagree with the historical touchdown rate, I think that is probably the most important thing to look at with a pocket passer is what is their historical touchdown rate. With Joe Burrow, since his rookie season, he's at 5.9% over the last 4 years. This is not, was last year higher than it will be this year? Sure, probably. But he is always someone that is throwing a ton of touchdowns, always, year after year after year after year.
3 fully healthy years for Joe Burrow. Yeah, he's the lowest. He's been at 34 passing touchdowns.
Right, and so whereas on the Baker side, when I say I disagree, what I disagreed with was specifically that, let's just look at the last year in Tampa Bay. He was at 4.9% touchdowns. That's really good. That's above league average.
Solid.
That's solid. And that was with that same team.
His average in Tampa Bay is 6.1.
Well, that's because you're including last year's 7.2.
Which is completely fair to include to get an average.
Yeah.
That's how you get an average in Tampa Bay.
Okay.
You don't just count the bad year and not the good year.
No.
So the average is 6.1.
I'm talking about league average is 4.5, and we see all the time. We see this every single year. We're going to see it this coming year with Lamar Jackson. Whoever has that crazy high, like 7.5 or higher % touchdown percentage, it always regresses. It doesn't matter if if it's Peyton Manning or anyone, they always Aaron Rodgers would.
So Joe Burrows is going to regress, is what you're saying? Because
Yes.
it doesn't matter.
Yes, Joe Burrows is going to regress. They're both going to regress. That's where I look at. Okay, well then what are they regressing to? What is their mean? And so Joe Burrow's mean is much higher.
Well, Joe, if you do your strategy and throw out the most recent year, his mean is 5.1.
So
Joe.
you're saying over the last 3 years?
And Baker was 4.8 in Cleveland. So it's just not that different.
Sure.
And you don't pay as much. So
Yeah.
I just feel like we are really enamored
Do you
with Joe
think-
Burrow. And so you're paying, if Joe Burrow doesn't deliver that season and that round, which he definitely couldn't, it definitely could go the other way.
Do
it's
you
higher
worry? Do you worry about Joe Burrow this year? Like, are you willing to draft him where he's going in drafts?
No.
Okay, then
No, I'm not.
that feels intellectually honest.
Yeah, no, I don't think I am. Because I don't think you're going up. I don't think any of us would think he's going up.
No.
So, his career highs 34 and 35 touchdowns. So and then 2 injured years. So the injury, like the durability factor I didn't even talk about it. Like Baker is resilient and never gets hurt and takes a ton of sacks and never gets hurt. Joe Burrow's missed 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So it's a conversation I think is interesting. And again, it's more about that conversation between those two than it is about any disparity me and you or like we have.
Yeah,
because
we're not that far.
We're not
apart.
that far off. I mean, I think I have him for more passing yardage than both of you guys because I'm giving I love the structure of the offense. This was they had a top 5 quarterback, a top 15 running back, another top 24 running back, a top 12 wide receiver in Evans, and Godwin was the wide receiver 2. I said 1 before. Number 2 in fantasy before injury, and then a top 12 tight end.
I bet it's just rushing.
That was the only team to do it since the 2012 Patriots to have those stats for those positions.
Over the last decade, 48 quarterbacks have had 30 or more passing touchdowns and a 5.5% touchdown rate or higher. 40 of the 48 decreased in touchdown rate the following year.
He's not throwing for 41.
Yeah.
That's why I have him for 30. But 30 somehow ended up at 6.
Yeah, I think
because when you move beyond the top tier of guys, it's just kind of like
the issue is 2 years ago he had a great season. He looked good as like you talked about. You were in on him coming into this year because he was really good in Tampa 2 years ago. 2 years ago he was the quarterback 10.
Well,
that's good.
Everyone was afraid of the offensive coordinator change.
Yeah, but I mean he was the quarterback 10, which is a good season. He had a very good season. But at the quarterback 10 for where he's being drafted, that's the issue. Is if you're drafting him at quarterback 6 and he finishes at quarterback 10. And his ADP, he's not a double-digit round quarterback right now. Based on what he did last year, people are drafting Baker much higher than we would hope to get a deal on him.
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
And so
it could be too
my whole
expensive
worry.
for him too. What's wild is if you look at passing attempts the last 2 years in Tampa Bay, I hadn't seen this till just now. 566 last year, 570 this year. Okay, so literally almost the exact same amount of attempts. 364 completions last year, 407. Completed 7%.
Far more accurate.
Of his passes.
And his yards per attempt was almost a full yard higher.
So, yeah, I mean, you've got arguments where, Evans' big playability, does that diminish? But I don't know. I think it's a fun one to talk about.
Yeah. Baker's always fun to talk about. But let me just say this. I don't like talking negatively about Baker because I love Baker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no.
That didn't feel good.
No, and I know this one's not going to feel good.
No,
for
I
you,
hate this
for
even
you
more
either because
this sucks.
I saw this name pop up for the show. And I said, I knew I was talking about Baker, and I'm like, who are you going to be talking about, Jason? And he says, I'm going to be talking about Ladd McConkey on the show. And I said, well, great, just another Jason
thing. Benedict Arnold.
Another Jason loves Ladd McConkey argument. I can't wait.
Lad.
Can't wait to hit play on that. And then I see this. I got him at 9. Mike, you got him at 9.
Yeah.
Jason has his little lad down at a little spot outside the top 15 at wide receiver. He's got him at 16. So, Jason, as much as it hurts, explain yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I love Ladd McConkey. I went back and I watched film on Ladd, and he is so doggone good. If their goal was to have Ladd McConkey lead the league in receptions, even in yardage, I think they could do it if his body can, keep up with it. He's obviously a little bit more undersized. The issue I have here is team identity. This is a team with Harbaugh and Giro that want to establish it. They want to come out and run the ball. You know, last year to start the season, you had J.K. Dobbins looking awesome, right? Comes out 10 for 135 on the ground, 17 for 131 on the ground. It looked like this was a running team. And we talk a lot about Justin Herbert's splits between that first month of the season and then the rest of the season. And for just cause, because he sucked the first 4 games of the season. They weren't throwing the ball a lot. They were running the ball a lot. J.K. one leg, J.K. Dobbins over here, the gas ran out. After those 2 weeks, it was like, okay, you know, he doesn't have it. They weren't able to run the ball successfully with him and Gus Edwards. And so they had to turn the ball over to Justin Herbert is the best option for them, and they did, and they had success. And they could definitely continue that this year to great success because Herbert is great. The issue is I don't think they're going to have to, and I'm worried that they're going to choose not to, and that they're going to – look, they went out and got Najee Harris. That is right off the bat, that is a humongous upgrade over Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. But then they went out and got Omari and Hampton. They spent a first-round pick on that. They've improved their offensive line. Like, this is a team that's saying, hey, what we want to do, we weren't able to do last year. Let's go do it better. Let's run the ball more. They've got a good defense. This is one of those issues where now I'm looking, and if they're going to be winning these games and running the clock out, Harbaugh does not need to get the passing stats up. He wants to get the W's, and I think they're going to get a lot of W's by running the ball. Then you add in the fact that you add Trey Harris. I know I pre-NFL draft, I was very high on Trey Harris. I think he was my wide receiver 4 in the pre-NFL draft. They spend a day 2 pick on him. They also brought in Mike Williams. So there's more target competition, and I believe there will be less volume. So that's my main argument. This is not a talent or a capabilities thing. I mean, if you look at the second half of last season with Ladd McConkey, I'm sure one of you have those numbers pulled up.
I got him up right now.
Say it, because I get hot and bothered.
I can mention from week 11 on and tell you he's 109 for 1,607.
Oh, yeah.
But I can also tell you that I remember, like, I loved the film. We were off-season Ladd McConkey brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Then he goes to this team, and I was pretty down on him for the first half of the year because basically the equation was this. Ladd gets in the end zone, you're happy. If he doesn't get in the end zone, you're mad. And you can look at the first 10 games of the year. It's exactly the case. If he didn't get into the end zone, you're talking about you're finishing at wide receiver 64 or 55 or 49 or 37 or 36 or 43. It was irrelevant. It was only that last stretch, which, you know, weeks 11 through 18, when they needed to transition the offense, when they didn't have that foundational running game, that he could give you a fantasy week regardless of a touchdown, which he did often, 123 yards, 117 yards, 87, 94, 95. And so, I mean, it's compelling because if there's a question about identity, are you taking him over Trey McBride?
No.
Are you taking him over Josh Jacobs?
Probably not.
What about T. Higgins, JSN, Kyron?
Yeah, so I mean,
that's the decision you will have to make about Ladd,
and that's where I've got him lower than where he's being drafted. I've got his ADP lower. Now we're not making the bowl case here, or you guys might. Obviously, he was a rookie. He finished at 12 as a rookie, and now coming into year 2, I've seen the training videos. He's looking awesome. So maybe he levels up and becomes that Keenan Allen for Herbert that was basically on a per-game basis like the wide receiver 1 or 2 in fantasy. But I've got his projections almost exactly what they ended up being last year.
Yeah, Mike and I have significantly more targets than you currently have projected, which would match an identity argument where, like, we both have him pushing 100 catches.
Yeah,
and you're in the 85 range.
And if he does what he did last year where he finished as the wide receiver 12, last year was a weak year for wide receivers like 10 through 20 fantasy-wise. Like, if you take his points that he scored last year and you look at what that would have been the previous 4 years, he would have been the wide receiver 15, wide receiver 14, wide receiver 16, wide receiver 14.
Right.
So, and that's where I've got him. I've got him at wide receiver 16. I think he's a great player. I would love to have him on my team. But where he's being drafted, I think he's being drafted to level up, and I'm worried he's going to level out.
Well, it's compelling in the sense that we know you love him unconditionally, and you still were willing to let the truth come out in your statistics.
It hurt.
Mike doesn't like it.
No, I certainly do not. I like Ladd a lot this year. those are all extremely fair arguments to me. Especially when Najee plus Hampton in the first round, like that's a really strong signal by this team of this is who we want to be. Greg Roman offenses are always at the top.
J.K. Dobbins is still hanging around. He might be on the roster too.
There is that. For me, a lot of it is, where his ADP is, which is at least where I'm seeing right now is like fringe second, third. All right, he was 1,150 and 7 touchdowns. That's what he did as a rookie. Now, obviously, a couple fewer games here. Malik Neighbors, 1,207. Brian Thomas, 1,282, 10. So far more touchdowns. But those two guys,
they're going way higher.
They're going in the first round. Like I think it's wild the fact that Ladd hasn't been steamed up to like an early second round pick. These are the best bets in fantasy football. Rookies who break out and finish as a top 24 wide receiver their first year. They are like the odds of the bet hitting, returning value on ADP is so incredibly high. And Ladd gives you ceiling where the other two guys do not. So I am loving drafting Ladd.
Does it make a difference if the Chargers are still tweeting out cool videos of Justin Herbert connecting with Quentin Johnson? Does that
It doesn't make
that
a
makes me
difference.
feel, that makes me feel even better.
They are still sending those videos out, and I'm seeing them. And I'm not even joking when I say this because you will not believe me because you haven't seen the tape. He caught it.
No, I don't believe it.
Quentin Johnson caught it.
There's
Nothing's
too much
on the line.
there's too much AI now. AI videos. You don't know that
Did you
was
run that?
real.
Did you do an AI
I did
check?
not run it through.
Yeah,
AI.
yeah. Come on, you got to zoom in on the faces.
He
They're
also
still
had robot hands?
Yeah,
Crap.
yeah.
You're right.
You got.
All right, we'll take a break and come back with Mike's Explain Yourself candidate.
All right, Michael.
Yes.
There is a player out there
You might have a tattoo of this guy by now.
that apparently you love.
He will never give up on.
You
is
will
another way
not
to
give
put
up
it.
on
Yeah.
him. You
Absolute killer ranking on
Let me
him.
see. Consistency.
this is
F.
player
look at that.
last year consistency rank of an F with 23% of his games being good.
Yeah, well, it stands for friendship for me and this guy.
He finished as the wide receiver 46,
Yeah.
missing only 2 games. He did, if you just go points per game, he got 8 of them.
He did.
He got 8 points per
He
game.
got 8 of those points.
And Jaylen Waddle,
Yeah.
you have ranked as the wide receiver 28.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, real.
That's really not that. I mean, that's
It's
not
not
crazy.
that. It's not that crazy, but it's it's a whole lot better than he did last year. Also better than he did the year prior to that. Coming off of 2 really down years for Jaylen Waddle,
You've associated yourself with him.
Yeah, I
tell
have.
us why you believe.
Well, I'd start by saying 2 years ago he was over 1,000 with 4 touchdowns and 14 games played. So he was on his way to having a very fine fantasy season. Now last year, absolute disaster for Tyreek Hill, and my ranking at 28. The reason it's on the show is because you guys have him in the 40s, which. It's not that I love Jaylen Waddle, but I think ranking him in the 40s is a little bit too egregious for a player with his talent, with his actual ceiling ability, and his year is tough. Like you actually have to get your detective hat on and get some science equipment to go see what really happened in the year for Jaylen Waddle. And last year, when games where he was healthy and when Tua was healthy. Like I said, there's not a lot of crossover here, but in those games,
Has that ever happened before? Both those guys healthy in the same game?
it has actually.
Wow.
I mean, overall in his career, where 49 games for Jaylen Waddle, where in those games he averages 15 PPR points a game, when Tua is his quarterback as opposed to sub 10.
Now,
when it
just
is not him.
For clarity, those numbers you just said are the career, with Tua,
yes,
not
career.
last year with
Correct.
Tua.
That is his overall career.
Did not play 49
But-
games with Tua last year.
Last year specifically, Jaylen Waddle was actually almost 5 catches a game, about 67 yards per game. So that puts his pace to about 1,100. Essentially the Ladd McConkey numbers. And Tyreek last year in healthy games with Tua, 5 receptions a game, 67 yards a game. Like these guys were neck and neck. Now it was not consistent Like there were games where Waddle played with Tua and it was bad, and then he had a couple games where it was fantastic. This is more of a note of this is a year 5 player who in 49 career games is averaging 15 PPR points a game, and the fantasy community kind of wants to just be done.
I'll tell you why.
With Jaylen Waddle.
Yeah, they want to do that because his targets and receptions have gone down for 3 straight years. They want to do it because even when he plays, he looks like he's limping on and off the field, and it feels like everything has to come. Like last year's season game log, that's one of the worst flops in fantasy.
Yes.
So the burns are severe.
Yeah, and I went before this show. I watched every target for Jaylen Waddle because I'm like, what happened where? And it even that doesn't paint the whole picture because you watch him and on a lot of times you're just like, oh no, he's so much faster than everybody. Some of his routes need to be crisp. I saw a lot of lazy out routes that led to issues with the catch. The screen game with Jaylen Waddle was not working at all. And my dude he had a bit of the dropsies last year.
Yeah.
So not everything is the external's fault when it comes to Jaylen Waddle. But a player who was 3 straight years at 1,000 yards to start his career, then has a horrifically bad year. I think that dropping him to the 40s is just a little too extreme for me.
I actually agree with you that I think we're probably both on too much of the extremes here. When I looked at statting out Waddle, I focused at when Tua came back. So. Because week 1, Tua had a bajillion yards, looked awesome, everything was great. Then he got concussed in week 2. So when he got back in week 8, so weeks 8 through 15.
15 Waddle got hurt.
And
it's not in my sample.
I actually have it not in mine as well. I said that, but it is through 14.
Okay.
So weeks 8 through 14, that was when Tua got back and Waddle was there. Now he was on pace for 77 receptions, 1,000 yards. That's not terrible.
5 tutties.
That's not terrible. It's not great. It's like 10.5 fantasy points.
It's a flex player.
But it's the process. It's the way that it comes. Because he had a game with Tua where he had 144 yards and a touchdown, and another game where he had 99 yards on 12 targets and 9 receptions. Those two were great. Those two are the reason why you're getting this 17-game pace of 1,000. But the process, how about 4 for 45? Two for negative 4 yards. 2 receptions for negative 4 yards. 2 receptions for 37 yards. 4 receptions. The majority of his games are just disappearing.
Well, it looks like that year in 2022 when he was on fire, 1,300 plus yards. That one's standing out as an outlier now.
Because that's what it feels like.
Because it's 18.1 yards a catch that year. 18.1. Then it's down to 14.1. Then it's down to 12.8. The 8 touchdowns, right? The year since then, 4 and 2. I know some injuries, but don't count on him for 17.
Sure.
So it does feel like, we kind of hit that was the explosive, incredible offensive year.
And part of this is the offense. Like the 12.8, I think that's low. That was an outcome of how Miami was running their offense against defenses.
Ship Jonnu out.
And maybe
Jonnu out and get me into Waddle. Get me into Waddle.
I don't think that Jonnu is the issue. I think it was Kyle had pointed out to me of just how often the Miami Dolphins were against zone. So they're playing that shell game where they're saying you won't hit a big play on us, and good quarterbacks
works, though.
I'm saying good quarterbacks figure out how to do it. Like they figure out how to make sure that explosive things are like Josh Allen is figuring it out. Where Miami just said, okay, we're going to go short stuff, and maybe a part of that is the concerns for Tua. They don't want him to get hit, but then the defense is like, oh, good. Go ahead. Take all this short stuff. We don't care. That's dumb, inefficient football. That's not winning football when you can't hit an explosive play. Now, does it come back? It's one of the biggest questions of this fantasy football season. What is the Miami Dolphins offense?
Jason has his target share at 17%, which tells me that Jonnu departing would matter a lot.
Oh, my gosh. I was just going to bring that up. Jonnu Smith, I think that is the – you say, oh, it's the defensive coverage. You're right. However, if they do that again, it's going to be Jonnu in the middle of the field, the short area stuff.
Probably.
They can replace that with Waddle, which they should. If you remember on the show last year, I was so pissed at Jonnu. I was sick of it because they're getting he did nothing wrong and he wasn't bad, but he is not the athlete, the explosive guy that can ever be
He's just
18
a great
yards.
mismatch.
Yeah, and so
He's
it's
a
like
great mismatch on defensive linebackers.
I would have loved to see them get Waddle more involved. If you look at those games that Tua came back from the concussion and whatever coverage or whatever Tua, whatever the reason is, you had a pace of 103 receptions for Jonnu Smith and a pace of 101 receptions for Devon Achane. Everything was just
that's going to end. That's going to end those other two guys.
Yeah,
that's 200 receptions.
And so hopefully they
them.
can not play that way, but it's hard to imagine with his concussion issues, with the terrible offensive line and the way that defenses are playing them. I feel like their hand is a little bit forced.
The one thing where when you're watching it that you can't fully piece together, like talking about myself, is because even in those healthy games with Tua, where he's an 1,100-yard type of receiver, his target share in games with Tua was still down at like 16-17%, and it's Brooks brought up a point of right around this time last year, like we're reacting to Jaylen Waddle getting so much money, and then they can't figure out how to get him the ball.
To me,
very weird.
And this is another. I don't know if you guys agree, disagree. Tyreek Hill's like regression hurts Waddle to me.
Yeah,
in the way this
true.
offense works. I mean, Tyreek Hill demanded so much. There's so much open field for Waddle to work in that I wonder if he suffers, and we haven't had to see him. It's like Juju when he had AB on the other side. Like, I'm not saying he's going to disappear like Juju, but boy, Juju looked like the next great thing until Antonio Brown wasn't taking away coverage, and you didn't ever get a season like that again. It's hard to project a season for Waddle like his sophomore year, but I think the ambiguity of this offense right now is scary. So is a risk rating in the UDK. I think he's lower. Jason and I would probably both. It's kind of like lame having him in the 40s because it doesn't really seem like that makes sense. No. But at the same time, Tua risk, Waddle injury risk, offensive risk, Jonnu and Achane risk.
It's really one of those offenses where you just got to call your shot and you hope you're right. Because if they get back to downfield passing, the two biggest values in this entire draft might be both Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle. Like
that's fair.
They should be amazing values because they're not being drafted anywhere near their ceiling. If you just want to make the case, ceiling and where people are drafted, draft those two guys.
Did you see Tyreek Hill in that party bus or whatever with the quote?
Oh, no.
A couple days ago?
No.
It was a bus, not a boat, right?
Not a boat.
Okay.
It wasn't a party boat.
It doesn't matter. Anything I hear about Tyreek, I'm like, uh-oh.
He just said he was going to knock McDaniel out in one of the games last year because he wasn't getting the ball. He's like, I almost knocked out our head coach.
Hey, look, every clock, even a broken clock is right twice a day, right?
All of our tiered rankings with customizable scoring settings are in the Ultimate Draft Kit at ultimatedraftkit.com. If you want to see all the breakdown of where we have guys projected, we keep them updated. We update them nearly on a daily basis.
Yeah, I said wide receiver 28. Is he going to be 28 by the time you hear this show? I don't know.
Yeah, it's true.
I might vote here.
This episode, the way that we're discussing and breaking down individual players, that's a lot like what those 100-plus player profile videos are that we just recorded. So if you've got the UDK, check those out in the app.
Yeah, see if we said the same stuff about Jaylen Waddle in the video. Hope so. All right, that'll do it for today's episode of the show. Thursday, very special mock draft episode coming your way. Do not miss it. Thanks for listening.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.